Well, a
Bluetooth
very
disconnected.
happy Monday and
Disconnected.
welcome to another episode of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Justin. Today is Monday, August 18th of 2025. I know it's been a few weeks since I've last done a recording, and I apologize. It's kind of been a roller coaster of a few weeks here, but I'm glad to be back, and we do have a lot to cover. On today's episode, we will be talking about Major League Baseball as playoff race is in full swing. We'll also give coverage of the Cincinnati Reds as they also have had a rough,
Bluetooth disconnected.
interesting
Bluetooth
last
connected.
couple of weeks. They get ready to begin a 3-game series out in Anaheim tonight against the Angels. So we'll talk about some Reds baseball, some Major League Baseball. We'll also cover some NFL as preseason 2, week 2 wraps up this afternoon as the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Washington Commanders. That it will be tonight. We'll give you detailed coverage of that. And then I got some wrestling conversations to talk about here briefly as we look towards Clash in Paris for the WWE here on August 31st. So we do have a lot of stuff to talk about and to get underway. So before we get started here, I want to go ahead and give a big invite you guys, encourage you guys to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you haven't done so, if you're watching us on our YouTube page, but you could also follow us on our audio platforms, anywhere you could get your podcast listening, whether it's Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, whatever. You guys could check us out, the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, and you don't miss a single episode as we get them published here. So before we get covered into sports, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in our channel. We actually have a very big week ahead of us as we have our WrestleMania week in our WWE 2K Universe mode. So for those who are following our channel through our gaming content, this week is filled with a lot of wrestling action. We started this project a year ago, a little over a year ago. It was actually after WrestleMania when we started our own universe mode, and we started it from a beginning of a calendar year, which means now we're kind of heading into the road of WrestleMania, even though in real life, WWE is beyond SummerSlam. So we just kind of followed through season 1. Now we're in season 2, and we've hit the grandest stage of them all. So if you guys are tuning into our WWE 2K Universe mode, you guys will experience. I'm currently working on getting Raw published for tonight. I think there is a pretty exciting show for you guys to check out. We will have the Go Home show for NXT Stand and Deliver this Wednesday with the final episode of NXT. On Friday, we will have SmackDown.
Bluetooth disconnected.
And then on Saturday, we'll have main event early on in the morning, followed by NXT Stand and Deliver, and then WrestleMania Night 1, with the conclusion of WrestleMania in Night 2 happening on Sunday. So we have a very big schedule for wrestling that starts tonight. Like I said, I'm working on Raw, and hopefully I should be able to have that published tonight. Football. It is our preseason week number 3 in our Madden. Now, like for those who have not gotten a chance to listen to a previous episode, our preseason is based off the
Bluetooth
last
disconnected.
season
Bluetooth
schedule.
connected.
So what the games that you guys are viewing is last season's preseason schedule. And so as we head into the final week of preseason, we will have a doubleheader on Thursday night as the Dolphins take on the Buccaneers, 49ers take on the Raiders, and on Saturday we'll have the Giants taking on the Jets. Now, this is what I have had maybe in conclusion. I wanted this season to be just AI content, so I could get, all your primetime games.
Bluetooth disconnected.
And I can
Bluetooth connected.
I can go out and get, not have to worry about playing a specific team. Because the football game is nothing compared to what the franchise mode is in MLB The Show, I'm kind of having to tweak some things because I'm going to have to follow a franchise in order to get, in order to do a simulation, in order to do stats and accuracy. So just like last season, where we played as the Cincinnati Bengals throughout the course of the year, and then we held other simulated games to publish for that week, I have decided to go ahead and do so. Now, I made this decision halfway through preseason, and that's why we're not witnessing any Bengals game this preseason. Excuse me. So I don't know. I'll be working on getting the games here, the new game here, probably within the next week, if not two. I'm intrigued to see what Futures has to offer, because I hope that as under exhibition games, you are allowed to maybe hold a primetime version. This new video, this Madden 25 last season held commentary, and I thought that was a great feature. But I hope this offers a new, they offer primetime games, because I know in the franchise mode they have special features, including primetime versions. So we'll see how that goes. I may tweak some things, but I'm anticipating to play the Cincinnati Bengals throughout the season, as well as host AI content from the game for primetime games throughout the course of the season. Last but not least, let's touch into baseball here, because we have a big schedule ahead of you as well. As the playoff race is on, you can expect us, we're actually going to treat you tomorrow night, Tuesday, with a doubleheader as the Blue Jays take on the Pirates and the Giants take on the Padres. Friday, the Dodgers will take on the Padres, and then the Sunday, the Reds will take on the D-backs. Now, I was just trying to find games that had playoff implications. And what I've noticed in the selection that I have, you have the Blue Jays and the Pirates, two teams that are in the race for a wild card position. The Giants and the Padres recently just swapped places in the NL West. And so that's why I've had the Padres on the docket twice, and then having the Reds and Diamondbacks fighting for a National League wild card spot. So that is what is expected to be on our channel in gaming wise. I wanted to make sure I covered that here briefly for you guys, so I keep everyone up to date as we get towards the fall season, and we have a lot more content provided for you guys. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into professional wrestling, specifically in the WWE. The reason why I say professional wrestling is because we got traded over this past weekend with Triple Mania 33, okay, XXX 111 33, and we saw a couple of things take place. I think it was a really good show. I didn't watch the entire show, but I got it checked in and tune into a couple of the matches, which I thought was intriguing. I love how AAA Lucha Libre Wrestling is available on YouTube in these events. I know that the WWE is going to be changing the way that you can stream its content at the beginning of
Bluetooth
2026.
disconnected.
So I'm taking advantage every time an opportunity such as YouTube pops up on a PLE, for instance. But we saw a lot of wrestlers partake in Triple Mania. The Judgment Day had a few matches. Dominic Mysterio, Los Garzas, who held the tag team titles up until the weekend. Otis, Omos. And it instantly reminded me of that quote unquote forbidden door. We saw a little bit of back at around WrestleMania season where they had AAA also when they brought back the PLE for that.
Bluetooth disconnected.
YouTube. But it reminds me of this forbidden door over the past several years and how AEW associated themselves with Ring of Honor, and you see a lot of now collaborations, and they use each other's programming to help promote their product. We were seeing this now more so this year with NXT and TNA. Joe Hendry. We've seen even Trick Williams take on the TNA Impact Championship, and I feel it was an exciting time for me because as I got to tune in this weekend to Triple Mania.
Bluetooth disconnected.
First of all, I'm not
Bluetooth
watching
connected.
Triple Mania week in and week out, so I can't tell you what's going on. But to see some of some familiar faces that's associated with the WWE main roster, is for me, it helps promote the product. Win or lose, it helps build the product. And what I like about this is that Los Garza, they haven't had a big run in the WWE in recent weeks, in recent months. So to be able to take potential talent and put them down in a promotion that can benefit them and expand, in their skill set to use them at its fullest. You saw Omos, and I think that's one thing that I've seen WWE gravitate so much for is that, okay, well, we have you on our roster, we have you employed into our, industry, yet we may not have a position for you on Raw, on SmackDown, hell, even on NXT. But hey, go down to TNA or hey, go down to AAA and let's offer our services or your services to them.
Bluetooth disconnected.
To help potentially benefit everyone. So I am grateful. I'm happy. It was a well presented show. Congratulations to Conan, who was inducted into AAA's Hall of Fame on Saturday by Rey Mysterio. And we're just, I think we're seeing, for those who are intrigued in seeing the growth of professional wrestling in general, this is how we're seeing it. We're seeing it through TNA collaborating with NXT. We're seeing it through AEW and Ring of Honor, and we're now seeing it through WWE and AAA. So I wanted to give that a mention.
Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
A couple of things here that I wanted to cover in wrestling today had to begin. I'm still kind of soaking in and comprehending what we saw a few weeks ago at SummerSlam. And I know that, hey, Clash in Paris is coming up August 31st. And, you have your own set of matches, and we'll dive into that on a later date. But, we saw a couple of things take place at SummerSlam that as a fan who
Bluetooth
just wants to
disconnected.
enjoy the product,
Bluetooth
I
connected.
try to stay away from the rumors, from the speculations, and I try not to associate with any of that. I saw a lot of people comment and say, "Hey, I told you so," scenarios of, "Hey, Brock Lesnar's returning," or Seth Rollins is, held a fake, and I don't want to know about that. Sure, there's speculations. Sure, I've been on that side where I want to know and I want to be the first person to expose that news and that mindset. But for me, what I've learned, it has taken away the excitement and the anticipation of
Bluetooth
what could
disconnected.
happen during that
Bluetooth
segment.
connected.
I heard, it was after the fact when I heard stories about Seth Rollins not being realistically injured and holding the biggest scam in all professional wrestling when he fakes his injury, had everyone made to believe that he was going to be out for quite some time, and yet he not only cashed in and became the new world heavyweight champion, he also stopped and prevented CM Punk, took that moment away from CM Punk. And that was such a
Bluetooth
crazy
disconnected.
moment that if
Bluetooth
I knew
connected.
that prior to going into SummerSlam, there are moments where you just kind of look into and look towards seeing that kind of, all right, you know what? I'm right. Maybe I'm not right. For me, not knowing got me off the edge of my seat. Right. So I'm glad that I didn't know. I'm still kind of settling it in. It's kind of dumbfounded. Feel like, we were all played, but it was good for business, and it has created storylines, and it has created drama that I can't wait to see play out.
Bluetooth disconnected.
I will go back and say, though, this is, and I'm going to talk about the Seth Rollins here for a second, is that this is also around the same time that that the documentary Unveiled was airing, where you kind of got the background image of what the road to WrestleMania looked like earlier this year. And one of the conversations and key points in the documentary was going to be the CM Punk versus Gunther match for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Bluetooth disconnected.
Bluetooth
connected.
This, they put that, that match up in the rafters for a second because they wanted to highlight and focus the momentum on Jey Uso. And I guess, knowing that before going into SummerSlam, it's also, there's a part of kayfabe that I think, yes, I would want to know some of the backgrounds, but I feel like there's been a lot here lately that has been exposed that I just maybe doesn't sit well with me.
Bluetooth disconnected.
This whole scam that Seth Rollins did back at SummerSlam reminded me a lot from the Bret Hart and Vince McMahon's WrestleMania storyline years ago. And because I remember it was yesterday, the incident happened, at the Pachanga Arena in San Diego, California, where Vince McMahon injures Bret Hart, challenges him to a match at WrestleMania. This is all tied along to the Montreal screw job and whatnot. And
Bluetooth disconnected.
Had the contract signing. Vince McMahon, Stone Cold Steve Austin was in attendance to host the signing, and Bret Hart ends up faking a cast, takes it off after he signs it to lure Vince McMahon in signing the contract, and then gets Vince McMahon at WrestleMania. So, it was a diabolical scheme. It worked really well. And man, I tip my hat to the creative team who developed that story. The other big news I think I'm still kind of sinking in is the return of Brock Lesnar. And I've gotten a chance, and I'm glad that I haven't gotten a chance to, respond about this anytime soon, because I wanted to really just let it soak in, hear what others have to say. And I've came to the conclusion, this is the same emphasis from when CM Punk returned, a year ago. And the emphasis is, if it's good for business, let it happen. I'm not an attorney. I was not part of any, I don't know nothing about those scandals besides what people write about. I don't know Brock Lesnar's side of the story. I don't even know Vince McMahon's side of the story of what and all those allegations.
Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
At the end of the day, right? If Brock Lesnar can make the company money, he can put butts in seats, and he can sell merchandise, and there's a fan base for him to return on, whether you like him or hate him. If he's good for business, and as long as his mentality is for business of the WWE, not for himself, then who are we to stop his return? I'm a fan of Brock Lesnar. I love how he has changed and how he has adapted to the time over the recent years.
Bluetooth
whether or not this is part of Bluetooth John Cena's final tour storyline, or if he is back on selective dates and selective scenarios, he is still an asset to the company that can make the company a lot of money. He can give back to a lot of wrestlers that can use a win over Brock Lesnar. Braun Breaker, for one, can definitely use a win over Brock Lesnar. And so if he's good for business, I say, why not? Now, like I said, I can't judge him because I don't know the details of the allegations.
Bluetooth disconnected.
And there were other names thrown around during that time, but the one name is certain: Vince McMahon. So, in my opinion, though, Brock Lesnar's back. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see what may or may not come of that, if they, whatever can work out of it. But I guess, time will tell, for sure. But we're moving right along here, and I'm going to change the subject into baseball here, as the Reds, they have some, it's a tough month of August. I tell you that. When you think out here in Cincinnati, when you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I can kind of just tune out of baseball. I can kind of get ready for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, and get ready for football. The Reds kind of make some moves to reel you back in. And so, they had for the month of August, they kind of lost that series, which, maybe the series would have turned out different, if they had it at Great American Ballpark, but they lost a series to the Atlanta Braves. They didn't get swept, which was a good thing. I think they're still the only team in MLB this season have gotten swept by an opponent, which is a really good thing. I think that if you could hold that, to the remainder of the season, I think you've done yourself a good job. One of the things that you could look back on saying, hey, we could walk away with our heads held high. So they lose the series to Atlanta. Then they come in and they take the series 2 out of 3 against Chicago. They split the series against Pittsburgh. They take the series against Philadelphia. And then they drop the series to Milwaukee. And so last Thursday, heading into this series, I was kind of just telling myself that they have the momentum, they're at home. They have an opportunity of ending a winning streak that went out to 14, games. That's remarkable. I mean, I remember when the Cardinals had a spectacular run in the month of September that put them in a wild card position, taking out the Cincinnati Reds a few years back. Milwaukee has definitely turned things around here in the last month or so to take over the NL Central. And they hold on a firm lead. I think one of the best records in baseball today. Leading the National League, and would have probably sit if the playoffs started today with the first round bye. When I watched the Milwaukee series, though, I had to just shake my head because I was remembered instantly of how this Reds team really is. And unfortunately, this Reds team is still so inconsistent with completing and finishing games. They had a 8-1 lead in game 1, and then they blew it in game 1, losing 10-8 last Friday. They had a lead heading into the 9th inning in game 2 and came back to lose the game. They almost blew game 3 against Milwaukee, having the lead in the 9th inning.
Disconnected.
And
Bluetooth connected.
You turned yourself to the pitching and especially to the bullpen when it came down to execution. The Reds put up the run. They put up 8 runs Friday. They put up 5 runs on Saturday, and they put up 3 runs on Sunday. It was the bullpen that couldn't execute. It was the pitching that couldn't keep the game in their favor. And it just reminds you how the Reds cannot complete games. This is also the notation of facing your division, which the Reds have done terrible with. So far, they've played 500 baseball against their division in the month of August. Okay, you look at what they have 7 more series against non-division teams. They have 5 more series against division teams. The rest of the month of August looks like you have 3 in Los Angeles against the Angels. You have 3 against the Diamondbacks this weekend. You have 3 against the Dodgers on the road. And then you come back for 3 more against the Cardinals. You will play the Cardinals 3 more times.
Bluetooth disconnected.
At a later point this season. And so the Diamondbacks are 3-0. If you look ahead, we're looking at the Diamondbacks who they swept. They dropped the series when they met the Dodgers at Great American Ballpark a few months ago. You have the Cardinals, who so far are 3-4 in this series. You have 3 more against Milwaukee. This may come down to Milwaukee, the final 3 games of the season at Milwaukee on the road, where if you win, you're in. If you lose, you're out. And my point that I'm trying to make is that the Reds do not perform well against their division.
Disconnect.
So you're telling me that out of the 7 series that you play against non-division teams, you're going to have to be nearly perfect. So from my point of view, I would be satisfied, and I'm trying to come to terms of satisfaction here, possibly maybe just coming up short of a wild card spot in this year's playoffs. But with the 5 series you have against the division, playing 500 baseball, I feel finishes out the season strong. if they can continue playing well against teams and not in their division, then I think that's what is going to give them the fighting chance to win, to earn a spot in the playoffs. The Angels don't look like a terrible team to go up and take a series this week against. But you're in Arizona. You're in Los Angeles. Maybe Arizona is not a team to really go hide up against. They're not, right now, they're not in a postseason hunt. They're definitely games away. But the Dodgers, they just got done sweeping the Padres this past weekend, and they're a scary team. They only look to get stronger. This Reds team,
Bluetooth disconnected.
you're seeing
Bluetooth
the fatigue to begin kicking in. So I would like to hope that this Reds team has what it takes to pull off a wild card opportunity. I really do. I think that they do. But they would have to play really good baseball for the next 12 series throughout the rest of the season. It's a incident. It's a weekend like last week, and I know you can't win them.
Disconnected.
But it's how they lost against Milwaukee over the weekend. How they came back and they took the series from Philadelphia, who leads the NL East. They took the series, they split the series against the Pirates, and they took the series against the Cubs, who currently have the top wildcard spot. So when you looked how the Reds are playing, you look, I look at it and I'm like, well, how can you perform that? You had the momentum last week coming into the Milwaukee series, and then you just instantly get reminded that, all things are not perfect. Another Red story that took place yesterday was that the Reds decided to designate for assignment left fielder, left-handed batter Jake Fraley. And this one's a little bit bittersweet. Got to remember, Jake Fraley came over in the transaction back in 2022. He was a part of a deal that came from Seattle where the Reds received Fraley, Justin Dunn, Brandon Williamson, and Connor Phillips for exchange of Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez. Now, so far, it comes to me that Justin Dunn is a free agent. Brandon Williamson and Connor Phillips are still on the Cincinnati Reds in the minor leagues. Jake Fraley was one of the only players really in the major leagues, a left-handed batter, and I felt maybe he was probably one of the more powerful left-handed batters on the roster, at least until recent months, leading up to his DFA. The Reds, I think, have done a due diligence for Jake Fraley by releasing him. He's not being used as much as an everyday player, and he's not even being used much off the bench. He's coming in as of 2025 so far, batting .232 with 6 home runs, 23 RBIs, 39 hits, and 168 plate appearances.
Bluetooth disconnected.
In his 7 years in the major leagues, he has 47 home runs, batting .247. So he's definitely performing under par. And maybe this is just one of the situations that, although you like Jake Fraley, I personally like Jake Fraley. I'm sad to see him leave, but maybe he just needs another team to kind of re-spark his playing abilities. And I was looking at this trade that happened a few years ago, and I want to hopefully say you kind of look at how these trades turn out and down the road. Jesse Winker to Seattle with Suarez. Now, Suarez is back in Seattle. That was a trade deadline that kind of really took place at the last minute. But Suarez was in Arizona this year. Jesse Winker is with the Mets. So if it all really, I think, depends if you can utilize Brandon Williamson or Connor Phillips now at the majors at some point. And Brandon is kind of getting up in the age, in my opinion, that you kind of, okay, it's either now or never. But, who won out of this deal? Because neither team went to a World Series with this trade, and no one really became a big starter with this trade. I like I said, I like Jake Fraley. I think he's a good person. I wish him the best of luck in wherever he goes to. I think it's good for business. It looks like this team is moving forward and moving on from what they have. So, it's business. And I think, you got a couple of power. Look, Miguel is playing really well here in recent weeks, and you got to provide room for these guys. I mean, it was just a week ago I was hearing stories and reading articles about, well, why you bringing down, Will Benson, or, as you bring up some of the guys, why are these other guys going down who are contributing to the success? And you're kind of running into a point where, if you are making that push and you want to put yourself in a good position to advance to the postseason, that this is now or never. Sometimes you have to give up guys to do so. So, but we wish the best of luck to Jake Fraley. All right. As we look into the Major League Baseball's playoff picture, if the season ended today, in the American League, Toronto and Detroit will have the week bye. Houston will have that third slot. Boston is half a game above, along with Seattle in the wild card. Yankees are right there. And then you have the Guardians, who are 3.5 games back of the Yankees. The Royals, who are 4 games back of the Yankees. And the Rangers, who are 5.5 games back of the Yankees in the wild card. I also look and I see in the National League, you have Milwaukee, followed by the Dodgers and the Phillies. The Cubs are a comfortable 4.5 games ahead. The Padres are 3 games ahead. And the Mets are holding on. They took a win yesterday against the Seattle Mariners, 7-3. And the Reds right there, 1.5 back of the wild card. It's kind of scary when you go into a series like the one you did against the Milwaukee over the weekend, because, man, a series loss, a sweep, does not do well for an organization trying to fight for a playoff opportunity. The Mets are a good team. Cardinals are 5.5 games back. Giants are 6 games back. So you're looking at a series or two, and a lot of these things can change. And when you look at when I look at this, you have 3 more against the Padres, you have 3 more against the Dodgers, you have 3 more against the Mets, right? You do have to face your division a few more times. And so when you're trying to separate yourself, a series against the Cardinals, you got to face them twice. And if they come in and they take every game in these next 2 series against the Cardinals down the road, that's the gap to put the Cardinals up there, right? If you go in and you take a series out of Chicago, you're fighting them just a game and a half ahead. You're looking for the Padres, for example. The Padres are 3 games up. A series sweep next month could put the Reds right there where the Padres are at. We play the Mets at home at the beginning of September, which can give us momentum in a wild card position. So, crucial, right? I mean, the Dodgers are the Dodgers. It just looks good. But, the playoff race is in full swing. So I'm looking at you have the doubleheader today with Milwaukee and Chicago. I think the first game is currently going on. Then the second game is on tonight. So you have that division going well for them. They're going to battle for the Central, even though Milwaukee has a comfortable lead. To the games I was looking at for the series to look at here this week, I was looking at the Reds and the Angels. Brady Singer is on the mound for the Reds as he enters with a 10-9 record. Victor Maduros, he's going to get the nod for the Angels this afternoon. The Giants are over in San Diego at Petco Park as Robbie Ray, he's 9-6, will get the mound call for the Giants as Nestor Cortez will get the call for the Padres. He's 1-1. The Mets have the day off, and they will be playing the Washington Nationals beginning tomorrow. So those are the kind of couple of series that I'm looking for and towards. The Padres are coming off of a series sweep, or they're coming off of being swept by the Dodgers over the weekend. Does the Giants bring that momentum over to Petco Park, or can the Padres reestablish themselves? They got a series against the Giants here this week. They also got a series against the Dodgers at home this week as well. So, so a lot of things can change. And I hypothetically, right, if you look at like I said, hypothetical scenarios, which I love to kind of analyze at this time of year. If the Padres have continued their kind of spiral downhill this next week, let's say they only win 2 out of 6 or 7 games that they have, whatever, on their schedule, and the Padres could take the series out of Los Angeles and take the series out of Arizona, you can see a whole different wild card picture as is. So as much as I do also want to draw, and I'm worried about how the Reds are going to bounce back from a series like Milwaukee where bullpen did not get it done. I want to see the Reds be able to bounce back and allow teams like Washington to take advantage and beat up on the Mets. I want to see teams like the Giants who know, hey, listen, the Padres just got swept. They just got swept by the Dodgers. It kind of cuts some legs underneath you, and let's come in here and continue that. And like I said, let's also not forget and give a shout out to Milwaukee. 14 games, I think, tying their franchise record with the most consecutive wins. Those are moments throughout this part of the season that separates you and gets you ready for postseason. I mentioned about the Cardinals a few years ago. The Brewers practically just signed themselves up for the postseason. All they got to do is not mess anything up over the next 6 weeks. So that is around our trip in the major leagues. And I kind of saved this conversation for last because it's kind of hefty. Let's take you into NFL preseason week number 2. The Bengals take on the Washington Commanders tonight at Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. That coverage will begin at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. Both teams enter tonight's game with an 0-1 record. Now, this is only preseason, I get it, but the Bengals lost to the Eagles last week, 27-34. Commanders lost against the Patriots, 18-48. Now, Bengals have had 2 road games now. They'll come back home next weekend to take on the Indianapolis Colts. Commanders come home for their second game, first home game of the preseason. Key notes from last week: Joe Burrow was 9-10 in the completions per attempts, through 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. It looked like he was ready for the regular season. Jake Browning did 6 for 14, 62 yards through 1 interception. Desmond Ridder, which was the guy I kind of took notice on last week, went 7 for 16, 91 yards and a touchdown. Now, don't you just love those stories, right? The stories that bring you back to, humbleness, because Ritter was, played, in Cincinnati, grew up in Cincinnati, played, I think, for Xavier High School. I think played for the Bearcats, I believe. And then he comes back to Cincinnati, played for the Bengals. It's just a touching story. And I think he creates a realistic secondary position competition along with Jake Browning. I'm not saying nothing wrong with Jake Browning, but, maybe does the Bengals come into the season with 3 quarterbacks? I would. You could always use somebody as a trade block down the road. Over there for Washington, Josh Johnson went 15 for 22, 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Sam Hartman, 9 for 19, 64 yards with an interception. So I'm looking at, I like this matchup. I think the Bengals, win or loss, it doesn't matter. We're trying to fight for positions. But it leads me into my next big story. And I thought we kind of maybe cleared this out of the water just for a little bit. But conversations are surfacing back up again as it seems like the Cincinnati Bengals still have issues with the contract negotiation of Trey Hendrickson. This kind of, since the end of, the defensive pass rusher of the year, you're probably your best defensive player on the team. And all he's trying to do is renegotiate his contract. A few weeks ago, there were stories that maybe brought some hope to the table that a deal could be done here nearly soon. But as we wrap up the second preseason week of the NFL, as we are about 3 weeks away from kickoff, it still seems like both parties are still far apart from each other. And from what I'm learning on articles and, news stories coming out about this, is that the Cincinnati Bengals are open to hearing trade potentials for Trey Hendrickson. And I was thinking about this, and I was just wondering to myself, what a big mistake it would be for the Cincinnati Bengals to allow Trey Hendrickson to get traded or to sit out any games this season. Trey did mention that if he does not have a better contract than what he has now, he will be sitting out regular season games. And we already are aware of how bad or how slow the Cincinnati Bengals start off to and how important he is. It's not like we have Sam Hubbard anymore. Trey Hendrickson is very valued in this organization on the defense for the Bengals, that we need him on the field in the lineup with every snap. He already missed out 8 days of practice. He was fined $50,000 per missed practice. He will be losing $877,777 per game he misses. And it's all because he feels that as a leading pass rusher, he should get paid guaranteed money. When you have other pass rushers like TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, TJ Watt this year is making $41 million per year. And this is where I guess I'm getting a bit confused at in this situation, because it's not like Trey Hendrickson wants $40+ million. He's willing to take less money, knowing that the money is guaranteed. And I guess that's one thing that I've heard that Cincinnati does not give out guaranteed contracts beyond a year. But if you have a guy as talented as Trey Hendrickson, wouldn't it be worth it to sign him for at least 2 to 3 years with guaranteed money expenses? I look at this deal and I'm just scratching my head why we can't get it done. We fought so hard to get Joe Burrow signed up. We fought so hard to get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. We got our offense set. Now we need, this is the guy. This is the guy. I don't think there's anyone better out there in the NFL right now that could come into Cincinnati and take over was what Trey Hendrickson brings to the table. I dare you to name me someone that it has to be realistic because you can name out names, but I'm talking about a realistic player that fits in Cincinnati, that could play Bengals football and can help control and run the team, run the defense as good as Trey Hendrickson is. Because apparently you should also give him a coaching job because he's out there each and every day. He's giving these players, and his teammates advice, leverage, and hope to potentially, be successful. But I was looking at, what happens if, I also looked at the category of, well, if he was to get traded, what are you going to trade for? And what does he value it as? I was looking at some of the teams like Carolina, who could definitely use a player like him after Nick Scruton collapsed earlier this week, had a collapse lung earlier this week. Seattle Seahawks, the Colts. Colts will make a good one. You had the former defensive coordinator, Lou Anuamo. Sorry if I butchered that name. But maybe reunite with his former defensive coordinator, the guy who kind of scouted him out and brought him over to Cincinnati. He'll also be filling in the slots with Kwity Paye and Laiato Lato out there in Indianapolis. Green Bay has Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness. Plus, they have the $31 million cap space to play with. Detroit Lions has a cap space. I guess if I was Trey Hendrickson, I'm going to a team, I'd want to go to a team that wins. Green Bay is possibly there. Detroit's possibly there. Colts, I don't know how much more you help a defensive situation out with going to Indianapolis. But the question is who's out there to pick them up and to be able to accept. And I think maybe that's what the point that Cincinnati wants to make. And so as they sit here and they say, all right, hey, anyone who's interested in Trey Hendrickson, come out here, shoot me out an offer, but I'm gonna let you know what he realistically wants. And the point is that we need to show Trey that what he's wanting is kind of lucrative. That you got to be reasonable. I personally don't think guaranteed money for the next 2 to 3 years is unreasonable. I don't think that that's unreasonable. You have a guy who deserves to be paid. He is a top tier player, and if it was me, I don't care about my cap space. I'd find a way to get it done because he is a key asset to the Bengals. He's a key asset to the defense. And if the Bengals want an opportunity, I'm going to take a leap shot here and just go out on a limb and say this. If the Bengals want an opportunity to go to the postseason, to get back to the playoffs, contend for the division, and possibly go back to a Super Bowl, it starts with Trey Hendrickson on defense. You could have anybody you want on offense. You can pay them any dollar amount. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Burrow. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter if it's Joe Burrow. It doesn't matter if it's Jamar Chase. if you don't have anybody on defense that can lead this team, and right now, I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced that there's anyone else other than Trey Hendrickson, then what do you have? You have another aggravating gray hair moment of a season. And all you're doing is wasting your time with Joe Burrow. Listen, Joe Burrow, it's not even Joe Burrow. You're going to have another AJ Green and Jamar Chase if you cannot complete your team. And as the clock is ticking, I'm telling you that. The clock is ticking for Cincinnati Bengals. Make the right decisions and win yourself a championship, because you're going to find yourself you're going to find yourself repeating history. And the repeating history is players not getting what they deserve. I'm sorry, AJ Green was a great wide receiver. He deserved a playoff successful run. Didn't get that with the Bengals. Didn't get that with Arizona when he was over there. Was forced to tuck his tail between his legs and retire. And I can see, like I said, the future holding in, Cincinnati. The same for Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, especially if the Bengals don't make the right selection. I think the right selection is, let's get a deal done. Let's work with Trey. Let's pay him what he deserves. Not what he deserves, what he's worth. And let's go out there and win us a championship. And at the end of the line, at the end of the day, until this deal is done, it doesn't matter, who you are, where you're at on the negotiation table. You're still in a combined issues, right? You're still dealing with, it's a front office drama that doesn't need to be brought into what the Bengals are trying to do this year. So that is my sports take here on this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. It's going to be a busy week, so stay up to date. Have those notifications on. Don't miss a single episode. We'll try to get back with you here at some point this week. Maybe get you guys ready for the weekend. Maybe cover some of the Bengals game. Hopefully some more developing news. Maybe some other stories in the professional wrestling world. But all of that, it's time to tell. I'm going to try my best, but I got a lot of content to get done. I hope you liked today's episode. And for more information, like I said, check out our TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, or you can listen to us wherever you get podcast stations at. That is all the time I have for you today. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in to the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of your day.